Hello, welcome to what is this? Pastors for Yang. Glad that you're with me today. I didn't play with my camera at all, but anyways, oh yeah, super professional. Hey, how's it going? Today, I thought we would continue our conversation on the freedom dividend and its potential effect on humanity, on the church, on people who are poor. I mean, like everybody. How is this going to change people's lives? So, we kind of did the basics. We looked at the freedom dividend and um, yeah, the kind of big picture stuff, the problems to be solved, all of that. So we're going to go down a little bit into the weeds about how this is going to work. So let's go ahead and dive right in. All right. So the most direct and concrete way for the government to improve your life is to send you a check for $1,000 every month and let you spend it in whatever manner will benefit you the most. The government is not capable of a lot of things, but it is capable of sending large numbers of checks to large numbers of people promptly and reliably. We have plenty of resources, they are just not being distributed to enough people right now. Let's build a new kind of economy, one that puts people first. If there's one policy that would transform American lives for the better, it is the universal basic income. I love this, and this is one of the reasons I really like Andrew Yang and why I think he has a very solid sort of Republican conservative appeal, is because he's very pragmatic and he admits what some on the progressive side don't necessarily admit, that government usually does a really bad job of a lot of things. There's a lot of things that at, on that scale we just don't do very well. But you know what? Sending out money, that's something that we could do. And it's something that could really change things. It's this libertarian idea of, hey, money in your hands is actually going to do better for you than me spending it on your behalf, or the federal government spending it on your behalf. And I really like that. I like the implicit trust that we're giving people, and and also the I was watching there was an NPR interview. It was him and an interviewer and two just people who were thinking about who they should vote for. They're having dinner. They're talking about this stuff, and some of this came up. What if people spend it on things that I think they shouldn't? And his answer is great. It's very much, well, yeah, you know what? In January, that person may buy a big screen TV, right? That's maybe not what I would do with that money, but that's okay, right? It's okay that they spend that money on that thing because that's what they felt that they needed to spend it on. And if it's right, maybe they make a poor decision in January. Well, guess what? February comes around and maybe they start to make different choices, right? I'm sure there are parts of the population who the first several months of the freedom dividend are going to be blown on all sorts of stuff that other people would not spend it on, right? There are probably things that I would spend it on that you wouldn't spend it on. There are things that you would spend it on that I wouldn't spend it on. That's kind of the point of it, is that we're all individual people and we know what we want, what we need, what we would spend that money on, right? A lot of those things are going to be practical. Some of those things are going to be really not practical, and that's okay. There's a kind of an interesting, I don't know, movement talking around how we help people who are less economically well off than maybe we are. And there's a lot of assumptions that go into that, of, oh, if you're poor, you shouldn't spend money on cigarettes or entertainment or this or that or all these different things, which to a certain extent is true, right? Spending money on cigarettes is not a great plan. However, the other side of this is this is a little escape. This is a little thing that they can do to go to the movies once a month or whatever, and just feel kind of normal and be there and do something, right? I grew up fairly poor, and I find myself, I don't get the cheapest thing. I don't get the most expensive thing, but I get kind of the middle. I'm not gonna buy the cheapest. I'm just not, because I'm in a place where I don't have to, right? And so that's a choice based on my sort of background and life. And someone who's looking at me and saying, "Oh, that's how much you make. Maybe you should spend less on this," doesn't understand that, right? So that's just a small sliver of what we're all dealing with, right? So this idea that we should just give people freedom, give them money that they can use in the ways that they see fit, um, and accept that they may spend that money in a different way than we would, that I would, right? But we also spend money differently no matter what. But the great benefit of giving that opportunity, and that continual opportunity, that continual chance to grow and learn, and maybe you didn't spend this month's freedom dividend well, but maybe you spend next month's freedom dividend better, at least, and kind of working this way up. Again, this paired with the high school seniors should take economics and basic economics, household economics. How do you actually spend money? And they actually have money, so they're able to really think about these things and start spending their money and start investing their money and start thinking about budgeting, because so many of us never really learned that. Kind of did, sort of did, not really, right? So that would be huge. So all of us can learn, but we'll specifically start with these uh, high school seniors and say, okay, here are some things that you really need to consider when you're looking at a budget, when you're doing this, right? So yeah, I really like that side of things. The progressive side, this is, hey, what could help people more than this, right? This is the ultimate program. It is literally going to bring people up out of poverty. It's not going to fix all their problems, nor should it, right? It will alleviate the challenges, and it will give people an opportunity to actually get out of the situation that they may be in, which is huge, because we know that the current welfare system does not get people out of poverty. It keeps them in poverty in many cases, and that's deplorable. That is a terrible thing that we are doing to people, because we don't trust them, and so therefore they fulfill that untrust and they make decisions that are not great, right? Because we say, you're not possibly going to make a good decision. And if someone tells you that all the time, then you may not make some good decisions, because that's what's expected of you. We get people in this system where they are expected by their local family culture to have a child, because that's going to get us this family WIC. That's going to get this. That's going to get that, right? That is not a good thing for us to do. Freedom dividend would alleviate those challenges, eliminate the problems of not enough food, not enough money for all of these sorts of things, right? But at the same time, take the boot off, right? Not lay a bunch of reporting and all of those sorts of things. If someone is on the edge there, currently, if someone is receiving government funding or assistance, that sort of thing, it's very heavily tied to their income. So there's a huge incentive not to make more than that income, because the math doesn't work out, right? If you're making so much in food stamps or whatever, that's how much is coming into the household based on this income. You might get a little raise, you might get another job or something like that, and that pushes you just above. All of a sudden, you've lost all of that extra stuff. It doesn't make sense. right? It's a no-brainer. Why would I work hard for less? It doesn't make sense. Anyways, so freedom dividend, that freedom side of it is really great. I appreciate it greatly. All right, let's keep moving. And let's push the button correctly. So goals: end poverty in the most direct manner possible, giving people money. Again, we can't understate this idea of just ending poverty. Move our economy into its next stage of development, human capitalism, with a focus on improving everyone's quality of living. That's another big one, and something we'll talk about in future is this idea of human-centered capitalism as opposed to sort of efficiency capitalism or crony capitalism even. This is changing the way we're thinking about money. This is changing the way that we're thinking about poverty. It's changing the way that we think about value. It's changing all sorts of different things. So that is a very good thing. Next goal is prevent the massive disruption that will accompany the rapid development and adoption of automation and other AI technologies. This is kind of future-proofing our economy. Major changes are here and major changes are coming. And frankly, it's strange that those who say that this is all about trade as opposed about automation, well, we're still losing jobs. So we need to do something, right? And if in fact automation is part of it, which it seems that the studies say pretty strongly, then that's not something that we can recoup. It's not something that we can, make a better deal, make a different deal, and then make everything better. Why don't we make actual people, normal people, ready for these changes? Because our instinct as individuals and our instinct as institutions is to self-preserve, right? I'm going to make sure my family, myself and my family, we're going to be set. We're going to be okay in this coming change. To hell with everybody else, right? Because that's normally what we do. We look at a lot of parts of our culture and our society, and that's exactly what's going on. People are seeing this change coming, and they are positioning themselves in such a way that they can benefit from it. What about everyone else who doesn't see it coming, who thinks that maybe it's not coming, who are already so struggling so hard to just get by that they can't even lift their heads up enough to see what's ahead? Why don't we do something about that? Anyways, mini sermon, as I'm like to do. Allow people the freedom to switch jobs, move, innovate, and contribute to society. This idea of dynamism, and we are bound. It's job lock. We stay in the same job because we've got healthcare and we've got this and we've got that, and it's much more stable. If we didn't have that, right, we wouldn't stay in jobs that we hate and are terrible and are demeaning. We might move to a new area. We might do different things because we have that stability. So that's the idea. We might make our own business, do all sorts of different things that we wouldn't have done otherwise. Turbocharge the economy by providing income to those who are most likely to spend it. There's a little bit of an assumption there that people who don't have a lot of money are going to spend all of this money. The fact is that a lot of them are going to use this money for savings and for education and that sort of stuff. But yeah, a lot of it is going to be spent. And again, it's this capitalism with actual capital. It's pass and go, and you get $200 because that's how it works. So there you go. As president, I will implement the freedom and dividend, providing universal basic income for $1,000 a month to all American adults over the age 18 so that we may all share the prosperity we have contributed to and participate in the new economy. And again, he says this a lot of times where This is a really easy one because it actually just takes a vote. It's not going to be that challenging, and when he wins, it will be very clear that this was a big part of it. And again, it has broad appeal. It has broad appeal from the left saying, hey, we can actually help people. It has broad appeal from the right saying, hey, money is good, capitalism is good, and freedom is good. Um, how many people are going to say, no, don't give me $1,000? And if they do say, don't give me $1,000, are they also going to say, also don't give those people $1,000, right? Then we get into spite. Then we get into, I'm okay, and I'm okay that those people are not okay. Um, when it comes down to it, it's not going to be that huge of a challenge, I think. Anyways, that's the party line at least. I think it is true to a certain extent. All right. That being said, I'm sure there is going to be, well, we've already seen crazy, crazy things that look at the history of universal basic income, right? It passed the House of Representatives twice under the Nixon administration, and it was the Democrats who said, "Oh, it's not enough." Right? There are crazy, right now we're having people who say, "Oh, it's not enough. It doesn't cover everyone's complete income." Well, that's not the purpose. Other people are saying, well, we should really go after those evil rich people and take all their wealth for the wealth tax and not hurt other people. Okay, there are arguments to these things, but it's yeah, it's strange that people argue against this so hard. Partially because it is a game changer. It really is a work to transform our economy, our culture, our society in a positive way. And nobody likes change, especially if you are fairly comfortable in this situation. Again, that job lock, we're almost in economy lock. It's scary to do something different. And so we just don't. It may seem like a much better idea, but we just don't want to. So there's all sorts of arguments that are being brought to this that in the end are not really that big. It's just people are grasping for everything that they can think of against this because it's weird and it's new and it seems too good to be true. But anyways, an excerpt from War on Normal People, which if you have not read, please do. It's amazing. Anyways, Universal Basic Income, or UBI, is a version of Social Security where all citizens receive a set amount of money per month independent of their work status or income. Everyone from a huge hedge fund billionaire in New York to an impoverished single mom in West Virginia would receive a monthly check of $1,000. If someone is working as a waitress or a construction worker making $18,000, he or she would essentially be making $30,000 UBI. And eliminates the distinctive disincentive, to work that most people find troubling about traditional welfare programs. If you work, you could actually start saving and get ahead. With the growing threat of automation, the concept has gained renewed attention, with trials being run in Oakland, Canada, and Finland, as well as in India and other parts of the developing world. Today, people tend to associate universal basic income with technology utopians. But a form of UBI almost became the law in the United States in 1970 and 71, passing the House of Representatives twice before stalling in the Senate. Versions of the idea had been championed by robust thinkers of every political persuasion for decades, including some of the most admired figures in American life. Here's a sampling: Thomas Paine, Martin Luther King Jr., Richard Nixon, Milton Friedman, Bernie Sanders, Stephen Hawking, Barack Obama, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Nicole Sijek Anderson, etc. So again, this has broad appeal through our history and broad appeal across the sort of political spectrum. You have Nixon and Milton Friedman, strong conservatives. You have Bernie Sanders and there's another. Barack Obama, staunch progressives. this has broad appeal, right? It's something that appeals to all of us. Are there things that everyone loves about it? No. Are there challenges and things that are being brought up? Yes, right? But there's a lot of things that seem like they work a lot better, right? Um, I talked about that the welfare system that just sort of locks people in and doesn't let them out. This changes that. Um, the other thing, what was the other? I was thinking about another argument that I heard here against it. Um, technology utopians. I don't know what it was, but we're hearing some sort of arguments against it. Why would you give people money? They'll spend it on things that you don't want them to. Why eliminate these other programs? Why all those sorts of different things? And a lot of it is along those that tribalism and those party line stuff, right? If you're a Democrat and you say why a VAT tax instead of a wealth tax, stick it to those wealthy people because that feels better. If you are a conservative, you say, oh, well, they're going to spend it on things that we think that they shouldn't do because that feels right. That feels like that's the narrative. That's the way that we've been trained to think about these things. The whole point of the universal basic income, the whole point of Andrew Yang, and I think why he is so strong, is that he's not looking at any of these things along those party lines. He's looking for good ideas. And if this is a good idea, let's use it. It doesn't matter who came up with it. That's huge, right? That was George Washington, I think, who said that it's amazing what you can do if you don't worry about who gets the credit afterwards. Why don't we just do this? This is a good idea. There is stuff that everyone can support. There are concerns that all of us have about this, and we can work on those and we can address those. But the concerns are really, when you stack up the concerns of how people might spend this money, of implementation of VAT versus wealth tax, all those sorts of things, compared to the massive good, the massive economic good, the massive moral good, all of these things that will come from a universal basic income, it's insane to compare the two, right? I mean, ending homelessness versus, well, someone might buy a big screen TV. Really? I mean, is that your biggest argument against this? It costs a lot of money. Well, yeah, a lot of things cost a lot of money. We bailed out the banks for something that they did really badly, and none of us got anything from that. We seem to have found the money pretty quickly there. Why don't we do something about this, right? We could actually do this. You're eliminated this food stamp program, or for that person, you're making them choose between them. Yeah, we are, and again, this is kind of the argument of the Medicare sort of thing. Well, ultimately, if we're providing a better option, then people are going to take that option. That's our job. Our job is not to make an alternate that people have to take. Our job should be, let's give an option and let's make it a better option. So, X number of food stamps where you're restricted in how much you can get and where you can get it and all that sort of thing, or $1,000 off the bat. Which is going to be better for your family? Most people, I think, are going to actually choose that cash over the food stamps and all of the stuff, because if you're on one of these programs, there's so much paperwork, there are so many things that you have to continually submit. I was just talking with someone this last week, and once you hit 65, it drops to $15 a month. So whatever you were making before, doesn't matter. You're 65 now, you're getting Social Security probably, and $15 a month. That's all you get. because it's a program, and this is, that's how it keeps all this stuff up. It also gins up all of the class warfare stuff and the wage stuff. Well, there's a huge anger against those who are wealthy, and there's some deserved stuff, but there's also some undeserved stuff. Some of it is those people have all this stuff, and we're begging for these scraps from the government. But if this was again, universal basic income, here you go, you're a citizen. It doesn't matter what your wage is. Here it is. This is your right, right? That changes the game on receiving that. If you receive a check every month that says you are disabled, well, that really changes the way that you think about yourself. It really changes the way that you think about how you might go and work, how you might be a volunteer, how you might do other things, right? It changes those things. Universal basic income would have a very different effect on people. It would be, I think, a change of hopefulness, that mindset of abundance instead of a mindset of scarcity. Here, go do something, right? Go, right? And give people the freedom. All right, sorry, I'm done preaching about this. I think it's a really good thing, and I think it can change our entire economy, our entire country. So that's my thoughts on the universal basic income, looking at that policy and Andrew Yang specifically. And we will continue to do this. I'll talk about probably some other things, and then we'll get back to policies and kind of back and forth, all that sort of stuff. Let's join in prayer. Lord God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity that we have to lift one another up, to lift those around us up so that they may be on a more stable financial position. Help us as leaders, as those who maybe have learned a few things about how to use money. Help us to come alongside those that maybe were concerned about how they might spend this sort of thing, and help and learn a little bit. Have some humility to know that we don't spend money the same way that they will, and we don't spend money the way that most people do. Lord God, be in us and work in us. With this money and with all of our money, let us see ourselves as stewards, as those who are in charge of money for a time, for your purpose. Help us to examine our own pocketbooks and examine how you want us to spend our money now, even before the universal basic income. We thank you and we pray that you would be in us and through us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I'm going to end with a quote because this one's really good, and I thought about it in the prayer. Martin Luther said that there are three conversions. There's the conversion of the soul, there's the conversion of the mind, and there's the conversion of the pocketbook. That we change, right? There's the soul where we receive Jesus, great, now justified, wonderful. Then we change our mind, right? There's a conversion of our mind, and then finally there's a conversion of our pocketbook, what we do with our money and our resources. And he says most people don't actually get to that third one, which is very true. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me today. Like this video, share it with someone else, subscribe, click the notification button, follow me on Twitter, and have a very blessed day. All right, thanks.